The story begins, as many quiet stories do, with a long stretch of countryside touched by a strange kind of peace. It was the sort of calm that settled over fields when the sun climbed gently through the morning haze, and the dew still clung to blades of grass like tiny silver pearls. On the edge of these fields stood a small cottage, worn soft by the years, its stones warmed by countless dawns, and a garden that had long since surrendered to wildness. It was home to a man and his wife, a simple couple who had lived through hard seasons, yet held on to each other with steady affection. The cottage was not remarkable in itself, not until one looked beyond its trusted walls to the land stretching behind it, a tall stone wall that curved out of sight, masking a secret the villagers rarely talked about. Some said it was the remains of an old estate. Others whispered that it hid a place where time behaved differently. Most, however, avoided speaking of it at all, for fear of drawing its attention. Still, those who lived nearby often wondered how such a high wall could conceal nothing more than ivy and weeds. The couple too wondered, but they were humble people and had never tried to climb the wall or peek over it. Their days were filled with work and their nights with quiet conversation, a candle burning low between them. And truthfully, they never felt the need to chase mysteries, until the wife fell ill. It was not the violent sort of illness that struck quickly, but a slow fading. Her voice softened, her steps weakened, her eyes grew tired far too easily. The man did everything he could to comfort her. He fed the fire, cooked warm broth, and gathered herbs from the fields, but nothing seemed to bring back her former strength. One morning, as he helped her to the window so she could feel the warmth of the sun on her face, she caught sight of the tall stone wall behind their home. A peculiar glow shimmered just above it, like light passing through colored glass. She did not say anything at first, unsure if it was a trick of her tired eyes, but the glow lingered, swirling faintly in the still air. A feeling stirred within her, a pull, soft yet insistent. She asked her husband whether he saw it too. He squinted, his brow furrowing, but to him the wall looked the same as always. Still, when she described the glow, something inside him tightened. He was not a superstitious man, but neither was he foolish enough to dismiss his wife's senses. She had always been the one attuned to small wonders, the first to notice the bloom of a rare flower, the shift of the wind, the way birds fell silent before a storm. That night, as the wife drifted into uneasy sleep, the man stared at the shadow of the garden wall through the window. The moon painted a pale line along its top edge, and for a heartbeat he thought he saw the faintest flicker of movement, a shimmer like candlelight behind the stone. The next morning his wife again gazed at the wall. This time she spoke with more certainty. She told him that she felt a presence calling her, not in words, but in a sensation like a whisper brushing the edges of her thoughts. She asked him if he would go, just once, and try to see what lay behind the wall. He hesitated, for the rumors about the hidden garden had woven themselves into local lore. People said strange things bloomed there, and stranger beings guarded it. But his love for his wife was greater than any fear of old stories, so he promised he would find a way inside. When she fell asleep again, he set out for the wall. Up close, it towered even higher than it appeared from the cottage. Moss grew thick between the stones, and ivy coiled like green serpents up its sides. He searched for a gate or a crack large enough to peer through, but found nothing. The wall seemed built to withstand ages. As he walked along its length, something changed. The air cooled, though the sun shone brightly overhead. A faint scent drifted to him, not a familiar countryside fragrance, but something sweet and wild, like blossoms that opened only under moonlight. He followed the scent until he reached a place where the ivy parted ever so slightly, revealing a narrow iron door so camouflaged by vines that he never would have noticed it otherwise. He touched the handle. It was warm, strangely warm for metal left in the shade. For a moment, he wondered what might happen if he opened it. But his love for his wife strengthened his resolve. He took a breath and eased the door open. The sound that greeted him was not the creak of old hinges, but a soft chime, like a single note plucked from an invisible harp. And beyond the threshold lay a sight he could not have imagined. The garden was alive, vibrantly, impossibly alive. Flowers of every color shimmered in the sunlight, their petals moving gently as though stirred by unseen hands. Vines arched gracefully overhead, forming natural tunnels draped in blossoms. Trees with smooth white trunks leaned toward him, their leaves glistening with a soft golden hue. The air was warm and fragrant, filled with a quiet hum, not insects but something more harmonious, almost musical. He stepped inside cautiously, closing the small door behind him. The garden seemed to welcome him with a rush of warm air, like an exhale from a sleeping creature. He walked slowly, mesmerized by the beauty surrounding him. Every flower seemed more vivid than the last. He saw fruits glowing faintly from the branches of trees, each one unfamiliar, yet strangely enticing. Then he noticed a plant at the center of the nearest clearing, a cluster of delicate flowers glowing with a pale, ethereal light. Their petals seemed woven of moonbeams, and the air around them felt cooler, more serene. He knelt beside them, sensing instinctively that they were extraordinary. As he reached out to touch one of the flowers, a voice drifted through the air behind him. "Those blossoms are not meant for mortal hands." He froze. Slowly he turned to find a woman standing a few paces away. She was tall, with hair like cascading silver and eyes the color of dawn. Her long gown shimmered like the surface of a still lake. And though she appeared youthful, her presence carried the weight of centuries. She studied him with a look that was not unkind, but cautious. He stepped back from the flowers, bowing his head in apology. He explained why he had come: his wife's illness, the strange glow she had seen, his desperate need to help her. The woman listened in silence. When he finished, she walked past him to the glowing flowers. She touched the petals gently, and they seemed to brighten at her fingertips. "These are moon blossoms," she said softly. "They open only in gardens touched by enchantment. They carry healing, yes, but also danger. To pick them is to disrupt the balance of the garden." He lowered his eyes, shame creeping across his face. But she continued, "And yet, the garden called to your wife. It does not summon lightly. Perhaps it seeks to offer something." She surveyed him carefully, as if reading the truth of his intentions from the air around him. Finally, she beckoned him to follow. They walked through winding paths lined with glowing flowers and silver-leafed shrubs until they reached a small pool at the garden's heart. The water was perfectly still, reflecting the sky above with unnatural clarity. The woman dipped her hand into the pool and retrieved a small vial formed of crystal, filled with shimmering liquid. "This," she said, "is dew gathered from the petals of the moon blossoms themselves. It will strengthen her, ease her suffering, and restore what illness has taken. But it comes with a cost." He swallowed. "What cost?" "You may take it," she said gently, "but you must promise never to return to this garden, not even once. Its paths are not meant for mortal footsteps, and every entrance leaves a mark. If you come back again, intentionally or by accident, the garden's magic will turn against you." Her expression softened. "You seek only to save the one you love. The garden understands this. It offers you this gift under the condition that you honor its boundary." He agreed without hesitation, bowing deeply in gratitude. She handed him the vial, her fingers cool against his palm. "Go swiftly," she said. "The remedy works best before nightfall." He returned through the ivy-covered door, and as soon as he stepped outside, the iron portal vanished behind the vines as if it had never been there at all. With the vial secure in his pocket, he hurried back to the cottage. His wife lay resting, her breathing shallow. He helped her sit up and fed her a drop of the shimmering dew. The effect was gentle but immediate. Color returned to her cheeks, her breath steadied, and her eyes brightened with life he had feared would never return. Over the following days, she grew stronger than she had been in years. She could walk, sing softly as she moved about the house, and spend time in the sunlight without tiring. Their cottage, which had once felt dim, now seemed filled with light. But though her health returned, something else began to shift. She started waking in the night, standing by the window and staring at the wall behind their home. When he asked her what she saw, she could not fully explain. She described a sensation deep within her chest. The garden calling out once more, not with a whisper but with a pull that grew stronger every day. He reminded her gently of the promise he had made. They must not return. But she struggled against the invisible force drawing her toward the wall. One evening, after she had fallen asleep, he sat beside the window watching the moon rise. He knew he had done what he could. Yet he feared the garden had given them only temporary peace. The next morning, his fears grew. His wife stood by the door before dawn, fully dressed though she had no reason to be awake so early. She said she needed to walk, not far, just to clear her mind. He sensed the truth behind her words. She was fighting an internal call stronger than reason. He offered to go with her. She nodded, and they set out together, walking slowly along the path that skirted the garden wall. The early morning light filtered through the trees, and though the world seemed calm, he could feel her tension. Her steps were quicker than usual, her breath uneven. When they reached the place where he had once found the hidden door, she stopped, her eyes unfocused, as if seeing something beyond his sight. "I can hear it," she whispered. He placed a hand on her arm. "We must not go inside," he reminded her softly. But the garden's magic was already weaving around her. He could feel the shift in the air, the faint chiming sound that had greeted him when he first entered. The ivy trembled, though the wind did not blow. A thin line of golden light appeared along the wall's base, flickering like an invitation. She stepped toward it. He gently pulled her back, but her strength was greater than he expected. She turned to him with eyes filled with sorrow, not rebellion. "I don't want to go," she said, "but something is drawing me." He held her close as she trembled, longing mixing with fear. And then, as though the garden sensed the depth of their struggle, the light faded. The ivy stilled. The air warmed again. She collapsed into his arms, exhausted, and he brought her home. For days afterwards, she seemed calmer. The pull had weakened, though not disappeared entirely. They resumed their quiet life, cherishing each moment of peace. But the garden had not finished with them. One night, as the moon hung heavy and silver in the sky, the wife dreamt of the garden. She saw the silver-haired woman standing among the moon blossoms, her expression tinged with sadness. The flowers were dimmer now, their light flickering. The air in the dream felt heavy, as if something in the garden was fading. When she awoke, she knew the garden had not healed her without reason. It had given her strength, but in return, it had taken a piece of her soul, binding her to it, not out of cruelty, but necessity. The garden lived through balance. For every gift, an equal offering must be made. She did not tell her husband this at first. She did not want to burden him. But the dream returned the next night, and the one after that. Each time, the garden dimmed further. The silver-haired woman seemed more desperate, her silent plea echoing through the wife's chest. Finally, she told him everything. He listened with sorrow, weighing his heart. They both knew what he had promised, never to return. But they also knew the garden was calling not with malice, but need. He knelt before her, holding her hands gently. He told her that whatever choice needed to be made, they would face it together. The next morning, the world outside seemed touched by a haze, as though the sky itself was unsure how brightly it wished to shine. They walked hand in hand to the wall. And this time, the ivy parted for her effortlessly, revealing the iron door that had once been hidden. He hesitated, but she turned to him and kissed his cheek, reassuring him that the garden meant her no harm. It was calling for balance, not sacrifice. She stepped through the doorway. He followed. The garden was changed. Its once vibrant colors were muted. The golden leaves had dulled, the blossoms dimmed. The harmonious hum had quieted until it was barely there. The silver-haired woman appeared almost instantly, her face filled with both relief and regret. "You came," she said softly. "I feared the call would not reach you in time." The wife stepped forward, asking why the garden was fading. The woman explained that the magic sustaining it was ancient and delicate. When the husband had taken the due to heal her, the garden had given willingly, but such a gift required a return of energy. Without it, the balance began to collapse. But the return did not need to be her life, nor her freedom. Only her presence, a part of her spirit, allowed to flow back into the garden. She would not die nor become trapped. Instead, she would exist between worlds, able to walk freely in both the mortal realm and this enchanted one. The wife understood, and she knew that deep within herself, she already belonged partly to the garden. It had touched her long before she ever stepped through its door. She accepted the offer. The garden brightened instantly. Light rippled across the petals, leaves shimmered, and the air warmed. Birds not seen before fluttered down from glowing branches. The silver-haired woman's eyes softened, and she placed her hand over the wife's heart. A gentle warmth spread outward, settling into her skin like sunlight absorbed into stone. The husband watched with awe and gratitude. He feared losing her, but instead saw her becoming more alive than ever. When the warmth faded, she looked at him, clear-eyed, whole, safe. The silver-haired woman spoke again. "You must still honor your promise. You may visit only at dawn or dusk when the boundary softens. She will be part of the garden now, but also part of your world. No sorrow will touch her. No illness will return. Her presence here strengthens the magic, and her love for you completes the circle." The husband nodded, tears glistening in his eyes. He took his wife's hand, feeling it warm and real. They remained in the garden a while, listening to the hum return, the blossoms reopening like waking stars. Eventually, they stepped back through the iron door. The ivy closed behind them, but now it did not hide the garden completely. A faint glow remained, visible to both of them. From that day on, their lives changed gently but profoundly. The wife moved through the world with newfound energy and serenity. Sometimes, when dusk approached, she would walk with her husband to the garden gate. The ivy parted willingly, and they entered hand in hand. They would sit among the moon blossoms, listening to the quiet music of the enchanted realm. In time, the villagers spoke less of the mysterious wall. Those who lived nearby felt a softening of the air, a calmness that eased their worries. Flowers bloomed where they had not bloomed before. Birds sang sweeter. The world seemed touched by a hidden grace. And each dawn, when the sunlight touched the stone wall behind the cottage, the wife would feel the garden's gentle presence within her. A harmony that never left, a reminder that some enchantments are not prisons but gifts. She and her husband lived long, peaceful years together. And though the boundary remained, they moved between their worlds with quiet acceptance, honoring the magic that had both healed and transformed their lives. And deep within the garden, the silver-haired woman would sometimes pause among the blossoms, listening to the soft laughter drifting from the cottage beyond the wall. She smiled, knowing the balance was restored, the bond complete. The garden slept, awakened, breathed, and blossomed, guided always by the love that had saved it. And night after night, beneath the gentle hush of moonlight, the enchanted garden continued to glow. A secret sanctuary, a place of peace, a quiet reminder that magic, when touched by love, becomes everlasting.